All right, I'm stoked to be joined by two guests today, Shannon Deep and Kevin Lee. They are co-founders of Bonfire, and they're going to tell us all about it. But it's sort of a creative studio, community, brand building place, ecosystem. They're all about storytelling, creativity, wellness, like meaningful lives. That's sort of the flavor that we get to taste today. And so we're gonna dive into that and riff on a few different ingredients within that and maybe talk about the future of what's possible in terms of business paradigms and well-being paradigms. So welcome to the show, y'all.
Thanks, Joel.
Thanks so
Happy to be here.
much. Yeah, great to be here.
Right on. Well, I'd be curious to if each of you just want to share the brief story of how you became who you are a little bit and like how you ended up colliding and collaborating to enter into this world? Like, how did you cultivate your values? Like, tell us a little bit more about your story.
Yeah, I'll let you go first, Shannon, but I wanted to say, Joel, hearing someone else like describe what we are building as a business is always like such a treat. And so the way you just described that was, it sounded like a playground to me, which we can
Oh,
get into
nice.
like why that might resonate with how
I
we.
love playgrounds.
Yeah, so thank you for giving me that like mental image of what we are trying to make here.
You bet.
That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a similar feeling, Kevin. I was like, I mean, he said all the things.
He's
So I
not
guess
wrong.
that's accurate. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, a little bit about my background and then I'll kind of like stop my story where it intersects with Kevin and then Kevin can maybe pick up a little bit about Bonfire. I come from a creative background, so I was into theater, creative writing, arts management, was living in New York and was working as a freelance creative in New York for most of my 20s. And unsurprisingly, that's not an amazing way to make a stable living in New York City, especially like in the years kind of following the 2008 financial crisis. It was just like not a great place to be in the arts. Um, but I was always a storyteller, as you mentioned, between writing for the page, writing for the stage, all of that. And I thought somebody has to need what I do and what I have the potential to do. And through that, I found my way into branding at a brand agency. And I was working specifically on the brand communications team. So I was creating personalities for companies and basically trying to make them more interesting than they actually are. And then giving those toolboxes to creative people to go execute that vision. And from there, made my way into the tech startup world as a marketer at an international tech startup. And there I was focused much more on writing uh, uh, the actual execution of creative and content production on marketing teams. And on one such marketing team, I had the pleasure of meeting Kevin, who hired me on to a marketing team, and that's kind of how we met and like first started realizing, hey, maybe we actually like think about not just business, but a lot of things in the same way.
Yeah, and like I think that's notable because like we both came into marketing from non-traditional marketing backgrounds, which kind of shaped our point of view on marketing. It shaped our point of view on business building, on like work and life design. And so I'm grateful to have found someone who like sees a lot of things the same way. My background is journalism, and so I was a journalist, journalism major. I wanted to write the back page of Sports Illustrated. I was just like, cool, I'm going to get my degree, and then Sports Illustrated is going to reach out, and we're going to do this thing. Like it's about time. And so um, did not fully understand the scope of work required to get from point A to point B. But I also graduated right around the time that the newspaper industry was just changing dramatically, with like ads and online and just so many changes. And the lifestyle of being a journalist is really hard, which I maybe should have asked my like guidance counselor about before I chose journalism as a major and career. But like getting more into it's like, oh, this is going to be late night deadlines. It's going to be working weekends. It's going to be um, a big grind. And there was parts of that that were appealing to me. Like I love the storytelling element. That's something that Shannon and I have kind of found through our business too, that we love that angle of things. But it helped me realize, to build the life that I want, I might need to be more inventive with what type of work and career help me get there. And so fortunately, like the through line for me from journalism to marketing is through storytelling. And so I went from former journalist into a content creator. I built this little like community around content. It was around a sports team that I loved. And so built that up. Was fortunate to have just like learned on the fly how to do SEO and content marketing and all these things that people would actually pay for. And so then I got plugged into a startup, joined really early there, which was also like very lucky because I was able to come in with no skills, learn all my skills on the job. As the company grew, I grew into like marketing leadership roles there, which then led me to other marketing leadership roles until I met Shannon at our place. And so I was head of marketing. Shannon was head of brand editorial. We ran that out for a while, and then we kind of realized we really love working together. We love um, a lot of the same things. We see the world the same way. We see marketing the same way. Like, what if we were to go and do our own thing when this whole like experiment comes to an end? And so, a couple years later was the end of our in-house days, and we started Bonfire, and no looking back since.
Yeah.
So it sounds like,
And so oh,
go ahead.
no, no, I realize my video is frozen, so I apologize. But please go ahead, Joel.
Well, I was gonna say, it sounds like both y'all have this theme of love and storytelling and, like, art, like, a sense of you're in touch with passion and desire, and so it seems and sounds like that's sort of what your vision and mission is pointing towards, that to support people in cultivating a sense of, like, excitement, aliveness, motivation, joy into business, and, like, alignment with who your true self is and what makes you tick and things like that. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's very well said. I think one of the things that Kevin and I bonded over was that we didn't want to do work for work's sake or work to bring home a paycheck or work that felt disconnected from the impact that we wanted to have as people. And I think that there are a lot of folks who do compartmentalize, like, their impact. They feel like, "I have impact with my family, I have impact with my community, there's charitable work that I do, volunteering, or I have my art on the side, and my job is this kind of other thing." It's, like, siloed off and sectioned off, and it's this sort of, like, battery that powers the rest of my life, and I don't think too much about it. And I think that kind of compartmentalization for both of us was really um, draining, and it was really hard for us to be in environments where we felt like we were being asked not to be our full, loving, present, creative selves who are prioritizing our own personal growth and the personal growth of the people that depend on us as managers and leaders. And that disconnect just became really untenable for us. And so rather than bang our heads against the wall of the VC funded tech system, we were like, well, what if we just made our own little world where we make the rules, we can engage with clients and with the people that we hire in the ways that we find align with our integrity, that prioritize showing up with compassion and humanity, creativity, intention, and just kind of like step outside the traditional, I guess, career path?
Yeah, it sounds like there's an element of courage that takes, and that's maybe one of your themes as well. I saw on the website
Mm.
this word bravery, um, and
Yeah,
I
I
mean, I
think
love all things
Shannon.
non-traditional, but I'm curious to hear what that felt like for you to step into that.
Yeah, courage is an interesting word. I think Shannon has courage and bravery, and I needed her courage and bravery to like make the leap myself. I think we were very explicit about that when we made the jump from like relatively safe, traditional, standard ways of working to like doing this thing on our own. Like we were like, oh, cool. What do each of us need in order to do this? And it was a blessing to know that we kind of met those needs for each other in a serendipitous way. Because I was always very nervous to accept all the risk of being an entrepreneur or to go it alone. And like it was a very, it's something I think I had wanted to do for a while, was maybe late to do in a lot of ways. And so I needed help overcoming like my lack of bravery or lack of courage. But like Shannon was that for me. And I think it has been a really like valuable component of what we are building now because we're doing things in a non-traditional way and it takes some courage and belief and trust to step out into the unknown and to be creative and do something that we don't see a lot of other people doing. And so, yes, I do think courage is a big theme for us now. And it was initially when we started this thing too.
Mm.
Did you receive influence from Seth Godin by chance? Y'all know
No,
No.
Seth
not
Godin, right?
I. I do
Yes.
not. Oh, you do, Kevin? Okay.
He's the marketing book guy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, I've read his stuff before. Um, the one that stands out to me from his is the purple cow, which I can picture the cover is like black and white cows with a single purple cow standing out in the middle. And so the advice is to be the purple cow and kind of
Yeah.
be unconventional and unique and stuff like that. And so I think he has like aligned values wise with us
Yeah,
for
yeah.
sure. Um,
Well, I mean, I haven't read The Purple Cow, but I've read Lynchpin, and I've read his blog. He's like the GOAT blogger. I think he's blogged every day for like 15 years or something. He just keeps showing up and creating, and but a lot of his for everyone listening, a lot of his theme is around this storytelling it for marketing and putting yourself out there, bringing the humanity, but this courage piece, the willingness to be the artist versus the cog in the wheel. And so that's
Mm.
maybe this theme we're kind of touching on here is there's a traditional and there's non-traditional. There's sort of what I call schooled mindset, and then there's creative mindset. There's like following directions, industrialism, all that stuff, paycheck for the just working for the paycheck, and it's not necessarily that doing that is a problem. It's just that is that really what you want? And it could be something that's easier and more convenient, but it might not be as fulfilling. And so this courage to step in and say, I want this. I want to create this. I'm going to create my own business, my own organization, my own possibilities here. And that's like this act of it's the caterpillar becoming the butterfly where it's a lot cozier in the cocoon, but at some point, like if you're gonna keep on growing and capitalize on this beautiful life, like you're gonna want to fly.
yeah,
Yeah.
we talk a lot about intentionality, which is what comes to mind when I hear you say that. It's like, cool, I can be intentional about being the caterpillar in the cocoon, or I can just be in a cocoon and not even realize I'm in a cocoon. And I think a lot of people are also that too, and not maybe realizing the ramifications of being in a cocoon or what's possible outside of the cocoon and things. And so I think that was kind of the watershed moment for me. It was like, oh wow, I am in a bubble, like a little tech bubble, a startup bubble for several years and knew how to play that game. And then once I realized what else was out there, what else we could be doing, and like being intentional then about those choices was a real, yeah, like light bulb moment for me, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes me think about, um, we were very, again, intentional about, like, defining success on our own terms and not by, like, what does it mean to be a traditional successful business? And, like, I feel like we're being very vague about, like, what we actually do as a business, and that's not intentional, but, like, we do marketing and brand consulting, like, for, usually for, like, very small startups. A lot of our clients are, like, bootstrapped startups, and we really like working with them especially. So, like, small emerging startups who, like, wanna get their story right, like, when they go to market, and so that's kind of, like, right now, that's, like, the bread and butter of what we do. We also, through that consulting, found our way into coaching mid-career marketers at those startups who are like, "Where am I going in my career? Do I even like this anymore? What is my like, I feel like I've lost my creativity or I've lost some sense of, like, meaning and purpose and enjoyment. How do I find that?" And, like, usually what that meant was, like, we were, like, de-influencing them from their career ladder. Like, we were like, "Get out, like, go do your own thing." And then and because we were meeting so many of those people again and again and again, we developed an in-person retreat program to invite folks to explore those questions of what do I really want out of my relationship with work? Um, not a like career development retreat, but like how do I define a relationship with work that is meaningful to me? And then doing it in person rather than in one-on-one coaching calls means, "Oh my gosh, I'm not alone," that maybe and maybe it gives more people the bravery to be like, "I'm gonna step off the railroad tracks that are, like, leading me on this ladder, and I'm gonna think about my career as, like, one piece of my work life or creative life, and it becomes like an ecosystem of things that balance rather than like the career is this, yeah, like a train on a railroad track that you like have to follow at your peril if you don't. So those are the kinds of like things we do now, but just to like lay that
I
out
love
there.
it. I love it that, that's where it's all at is cultivating that sense of ecosystem, that sense of consciousness. Basically, you said earlier, like, you could be in the cocoon
Yeah.
if you're being intentional about it, is maybe you're gonna wanna be intentional about it if you wanna live the best life, like, I have a good friend he's very, very conscious, very intentional, very aware, and he's working a corporate job, and he actually really likes it as a developer, and he's really good at what he does, but it's like a corporate environment, but he's like, "Yeah, I totally get it, like, it's not vibing," you know, but, like but he's very intentional that this is his life choice, but there's a lot of people maybe who are not necessarily realizing their own power, what the other options are out there. But I love the idea of ecosystem, and also I love the idea of just even dissolving the whole paradigm of there's a career you have. I think that's one of the
Mhm.
shifts we're starting to see is like, I mean, I heard recently like Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn, said that he thinks like the 9 to 5 is going to be dead by 2035. I mean, we're definitely shifting more and more towards just more portfolio type of structures and different variations on how people earn income and multiple income sources. And I'm kind of like done with the word career because I don't even know what to call myself because I'm doing like 4 different things and they're all meaningful to me and they're all kind of integrating together. And I don't know. I'm just sort of deciding that maybe I'm just gonna not label myself anything, and that might be the most liberating thing to do. Um, but yeah, I'm curious more to hear about, like, where do you think the future of work and business are going with all this?
I'm curious how you introduce yourself at a party. Like, does it depend what party you're at?
I'm feeling insecure. I mean, when people ask me, we just had South by Southwest here in Austin, and I went to a few events, and you know, some people they just want to go to the standard "What do you do?" question, and I'm like, "Come on, man, give me a new question." Like, but it's like it's kinda like contextual or it's like being more and more playful about it because I know that it's not possible to actually share my life in less than 30 seconds. So it's like, okay, that's the
Yeah.
constraint. So what are some ways that I wanna to play with that, you know? But it's like entrepreneur is probably the fastest way because it kinda covers, like, my life as I've created an entrepreneurial life, and everything is, like, my own design at this point. But yeah, like, I'm doing podcasting and I'm doing one-to-one healing with people or but even then, the word healing is just one environment, people are gonna resonate with that word. Another environment, it's gonna be coaching, and they wanna call me a coach, and it's like, okay, it's all just words. But then I'm also a classically trained musician, and I have a concert coming up in a couple weeks. So it's like there's all these different elements of that just emerge from for me, it's all about following my curiosity and my desire. It's like, what do I actually want? And that's just that was the outgrowth of new many years of self-development, self-knowledge, and being willing to look inward, like, who am I? So maybe you can talk about that too, but feel free to volley off of that however you want.
Yeah, I have like a quick thought on that, and then like happy to toss it to you, Shannon. Like, I think identity is a really big piece of work for me, and I think it will and already does. work differently for people moving forward. Like I think of my dad, like he ran his own plumbing business, like the end, like his LinkedIn would be plumbing business, period, full stop. Like that was it for forever. And so that was his one identity at work was he ran this business. But I think it also um maybe like I don't want to say like consumed his life, but when I think of how he would identify, I think that was such a big piece of it relative to something like you just shared, Joel, where there's like, oh, there's all these sorts of these different pieces. I couldn't fit it into a 30-second intro or things. I think that mindset feels like a really big, at least in my experience, like a generational shift of like, oh, it's no longer this is my the sole thing I'm doing forever. I have a one job career. It's more portfolio career. I think maybe the future is even a bit more about identity. Like maybe ask me what I'm excited about now rather than what I do for work, because I that's where the conversations are shifting, and that could be more representative of how I spend my time and the things that I enjoy doing. So I think it's a pretty big identity shift relative to work and what you like outside of work.
Yeah, I guess, like, the shorthand for that is, like, decenter work, and we talk about that a lot, and that, like, we view, like, Bonfire as a business structure. Like, we have like, I'm in France, for people listening, Kevin is in the US. We have a US entity, we have a French entity, and in order to, like, support these entities, we have a bunch of business structures and bank accounts and, like, lawyers and accountants who, like, work with us and talk to us about all of this. But, like, none of that is the heart or center of our lives. And, like, it's like the structures that we have created are a tool for the rest of our lives to thrive through. And so the work will never be the things that we are doing to make money and move through the professional world as Bonfire are so much less important than the quality of life, quality and types and variety and enrichment of experiences that, like, Bonfire enables for Kevin's family and for mine. And if that is the center, and our personal growth and development, our support and love for one another as friends, and the way that this company allows us to, like, better support the community around us, that then it is successful or not successful, not whether or not Bonfire becomes a huge marketing agency that Omnicom wants to, like, buy out and we get a big paycheck or something. And so I think it's just the, like, I don't know, I have this, like, image in my head of, like, like a weighted ring, and, like, the personal life ring, like, is or the personal life side of the ring, like, flips to the top, and, like, the work stuff is just, like, at the bottom. Um, and yeah, I don't know, that's the reorientation that I think a lot of people are going through. I think the pandemic sped a lot of people through that reorientation. I think now the sort of, like, transparency of global chaos, exploitation, the, like, extractive class, becoming, like, less and less covert about, like, what they're actually, like, doing to, working class people. I think all of that is, like, peeling back the layers of, propaganda and protective self-deception that people do in order to, like, keep them in, like, regular 9 to 5 jobs.
Yeah, you familiar with that phrase that popped up a few years ago, quiet quitting?
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, so that idea of, like, more and more people, I think more and more Gen Z in particular, just not telling anybody, but kinda showing up to work and doing the minimum, and that was an interesting phenomenon, and I remember Cal Newport had a nice article about that, um,
Mm.
about the sort of nuances with it, because on one hand, there's, like, the traditionalists would say, like, "Hey, you just need to show up and do the thing, and you need to have grit," right? And then there's, like, the younger generation's like, "I wanna do what I wanna do," you know? And so, for me, I see it as it's all just part of the it's all part of the greater, growth evolution process of society in terms of this whole integration of work and creativity and work and joy, value creation and joy, artistry versus just execution, like all these things where it's like, maybe there are some things for the Gen Zers to learn. I'm just generalizing here, of course, but maybe there are some things for the Gen Zers to learn from the more traditional types about just show up and get it done. But maybe there's also things for people to learn from the Gen Zers who are saying, you know what, I really want what I want. I feel a lot of inspiration for people who are like, you know what, I'm just gonna, start a YouTube channel when I'm 17 and just become fully autonomous and fully creative. And I think it's awesome.
I love that. I mean, as a millennial who is like weighted down by responsibility and burdened by all that, I'm like, yeah, nice. That's nice for you to be able to do that. But also, like, that's part of my unlearning too. Like, I think jumping
Yeah.
into the bonfire has been so much unlearning of what I thought had to be true in a startup life, what I thought had to be true in a career. Um, there are still moments. I mean, they're not moments. Like, there's the reality that Shannon and I have to earn money to pay the bills, and so how do we blend? Maybe like what you described, Joel, as like a spectrum of like I do what I want, but I
Yeah.
also know when to like buckle down and get this thing done or put process in place or whatever the case may be. Like if we found a happy medium there, but there are yeah, there are days where I'm tempted to just like, oh cool, let's scale this thing so that Omnicom can buy us and we can be like millionaires. Like let's grind for 5 years. And I don't think Shen and I want to do that at all. And so then we have to like swing me back to the other end of the spectrum where it's like, oh cool, no, we can do what we want and define success for ourselves and things like that. But it is a constant like learning curve for me at least.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
curious
absolutely.
about
It's that like
Shannon, go
oh,
ahead.
sorry, go ahead. No, no, no. I was just gonna say it really just is the balance of like the now versus the future. Like how much are you investing, sacrificing in the now for and like how sure are you that that is actually paying off or coming back to you in the way that you want it to. Kevin and I talk a lot about that.
Yeah, I this reminds me of a beautiful conversation I had with my friend Jackson a few months ago on this podcast about this whole present versus future. And we ended up coining this phrase mature desire. And I liked also
Mm,
the phrase empathy for the future self. And so like I think the evolution here is like is unlearning a lot. It's also connecting to motivation, your purpose, your desire for your in the moment intrinsic motivation as well as intrinsic motivation for your future self. And when you integrate that together, then you can
mhm,
operate from like a pull motivation versus a push motivation. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on that, like the idea of motivation. And maybe I think maybe you talk about some of the stuff at your retreats, but like when it comes to the psychology and how you show up and intrinsic motivation versus extrinsic motivation, because I think that's the shift that I want to contribute towards is helping people cultivate the curiosity, creativity, intrinsic motivation based um, mode of operation as opposed to the cog in the wheel and just do what you're told and do it because you have to do it and because this is just the grind, but like cultivating the desire. And yeah, there's like constraints of reality and like in order to fulfill your basic needs, bringing in resources um, and doing that like responsibly, so to speak. But I think there's like a way to and this is all the unlearning is a lot about like unlearning a lot of the pressure we put on ourselves from our conditioning around like I gotta just work for the sake of work and all this like pressure to perform. And there's so much of that. But I think ultimately we can move towards as a culture is this the sense of self-management, the sense of wholeness and desire and intrinsic motivation versus like I gotta do it, I have to do it, pressure to do it. So curious any thoughts on that.
Mhm. Hmm.
yeah.
I have a quick one. Do you have something, Jen?
Well, it made me yes, but I'll go after you. Go for it.
Okay. I was thinking of the values work that we do with folks. And
Mm,
so I think the like motivation for me became a bit more clear once I became more clear about what I value. That's where I find more intrinsic motivation than extrinsic motivation. I think extrinsic motivation is maybe tied into a lot of old habits, a lot of shoulds that I put on myself, versus intrinsic motivation, I think is a bit more grounded in these are the things that I really care about and want to strive for. And I don't have to find motivation elsewhere to do this stuff. I'm intrinsically motivated to go and make it happen. And so values work is something that we do. We just ran through an exercise with a little cohort of folks in our community. It's something that we're going to do in our in-person retreat in the spring, and we'll probably continue to do in future retreats moving forward. And I think it's a really helpful grounding exercise for a lot of the motivation and career changes and life changes that we would encourage people to make if they want to.
Yeah. Yeah, a very good point. That wasn't what I thought of,
Oh,
funnily
good.
enough, but like it's no, like spot on. Like when you know what's important to you, and like a lot of people might think they know what's important to them, but like actually like really being forced in a good way to like drill down to what those things are, like really distills it, kind of like makes them shine a little bit hotter for you. Um, but when you were speaking, Joel, it made me think of you mentioned this phrase on your episode about the 500-year vision, I think, where you talk about we tend to overestimate what we can do in a year and underestimate what we can do in 10 years. And that really struck me. Um, and I think that the part of the like, I guess I'm, like, tying in my head a little bit together the motivation piece and the feeling of, like, pressure to get stuff done, and when it is that extrinsic pressure, the one of the big ones is, like, time. Like, there is never you can never have "success," quote, unquote, fast enough, and so, like, do it faster always. Faster is always better. And in that sort of overextension of what we think we can do in a year, are we burning out a lot quicker? Are we exhausting our resources? Are we going far but going alone instead of like going more slowly and thoughtfully and like bringing people along with us? And so yeah, I think, like, taking the pedal off the extrinsic motivation and putting it more on intrinsic means it's always the motivation will always be there, so you can sort of trust it. Like, you can trust that it will be here in year 1, year 2, year 7, year 10, year 50, versus the extrinsic motivation, those conditions can change at any moment. And so how do you then control your trajectory toward the vision that you're trying to create? You can't. It has to be intrinsic.
Yeah, yeah. That's Daniel Coyle calls it the motivational fuel. Like, you have your
Mm,
why, then, like, everything just can just blossom from there. And I add to that is, like, you have your why and you let go of the fears or the conditioning or the beliefs and that you've been taught that to and the inner critics that kind of have shaped the way you've related to motivation and so forth. I'm curious about, like, this is kinda like um, one of the passions within my greater underneath my greater umbrella of passion, but, like, the idea of, helping people let go of the shoulds and, like, letting go of just the burnout hustling stuff, you know? I think that in the pressure, the speediness, and I think there's a lot of this internal I I just yesterday, I'm still finding I'm doing just constantly doing the inner self introspection and finding the parts of myself that are need to unlearn, need to heal. And I found this part of me that went back to like early elementary school and this experience of just the morning routine of getting ready to go to school and rushing out the door and trying to catch the bus. And it was always kind of chaotic. And I also just I didn't want to go to school like a lot of kids. Like it just And I just remember having this weight in my body, and I was like, I gotta do it, you know? And so that weight was still stored in my body up until yesterday when I cleared it out. Like, it's like that, like this stuff can get stored, this obligation, have to, I should do it. And then we end up like pushing ourselves to burnout, even if we are like motivated to do something. It's like we're still operating within like this pressure to be productive and things like that. So I'd be curious if either of you want to share any personal stories around your relationship to productivity, and like, or any stories from people you work with, and like this kind of topic, because I think it's yeah, it's one of those ones that I think about a lot, and I want to see the world move towards like, hey, we can just find your own rhythm, and there's no one right way to be productive, and like letting go of some of this internal pressure that ends up leading people to burnout, or just hustling or high stress.
Yeah, we might need 2 or 3 more hours to be able to like cover all all the examples and stories. I mean, Shannon knows this for me. I think urgency and like hustle and grind culture. I think those are like two of my biggest things that I am unlearning and processing and figuring out and working through. Um, and those come from a lot of different places. Like I have a lot of different influences that have kind of built up into making those um, habits that are hard to break, parts of my identity that I may be ready to let go of, but don't quite know how to yet, or don't quite know what to fill that identity gap with too. So there's a lot built up in that for me. Like for instance, it's as big as like um, my dad died, 10, 15 years ago at the end of like a very long career building his business and looking forward to retirement. And that day never really came for him. It was kind of like an out of the blue thing. And so like I don't ever want to waste a single moment, and which leads me into like everything feels urgent and timely, and like we gotta achieve this goal now because I don't know I don't know how much longer I have. None of us know how much longer we have. So there's like the mortality end of the spectrum, which is part of it. Um, all the way into like personality stuff. We're like, oh, I want to make sure I like complete this thing that I've told this person to do so that I can like continue to build trust with them so they don't like leave me or reject me or something like that. So I can tie it into those feelings also. And then like productivity is a whole nother thing where I think especially in the startup environments that I grew up in, productivity was glorified. And I think it's glorified in a lot of cultures, a lot of self-help books. Like there's a lot of productivity advice out there where um, if I am productive, then I have value, then I am worthy. I also like have strong perfectionism tendencies where like if I can do this thing perfectly, then I am worthy. And like tying my worth into productivity or to performance or to achievement is like a really big temptation for me, but also something where I know I can tip over the edge into burnout and things like that. And so like one of the there have been so many healing moments in Bonfire and like processing through all this stuff, like running my own business. I think I've had to like reframe my relationship with all this stuff over the last few years, like having a son, like balancing how do I be a good dad who's not at the computer 24/7 when it's possible to be at the computer 24/7 in startups. And so like building a new work schedule around home life and family life and things like that. Not inventing things to do on fire because there is no shortage of things to do when you're running your own business, but to be like, no, enough is enough. We are good. Because that also changes like the dynamic between me and Shannon when I'm hustling and doing and inventing things over here and like not sharing with her. Like it's what Shannon said about going faster alone or farther together. And so um again, probably more anecdotes than you wanted, but I have a bag full of them and there's
Yeah.
a lot there.
Yeah.
No, I um I appreciate Kevin's self-reflection on all of that stuff. And I feel like um I swing like really hard the other direction where I am n- and like I had a like an unlearning moment or period of time that was like forced by something else, which I'll get to. But like my work, I think, is I've swung hard into the like so protecting my autonomy and ability to like pivot and make a plethora of different decisions at the drop of a hat and not feeling like so tied down to any like one path because I have fear around like uh, grinding out something in a particular direction that will never pay off. And it's like a weird like inversion of Kevin's fear because they are similar fears, which is like, I will never see the fruit of this labor. And so why am I doing labor instead of like enjoying my present, however I can make that present, like, meaningful to me, but it just shows up in different ways where Kevin's like, "Well, then I just gotta get to the fruit fast," and I'm like, "No, no, no, I'm just gonna look around my feet for the fruit." And so we do
We both
different
want the
things.
fruit. Yeah.
We both want the fruit, but but we have different coping mechanisms for it, and so we balance each other really well, and the conflict that we have, we're able to, like, navigate it, I think, with, like, grace and compassion because we understand each other's coping mechanisms very well and, like, where they come from. But I think my unlearning and, like, why I swung so hard into this direction is that I did have a burnout. Uh, it was, like, right kind of during pandemic times, and it was, like, it coincided when I moved to France. And so France, famously, they hate to work here. And I love that for them. And when you suddenly find yourself like, I was at a New York, tech startup, and then I went to the
Wow.
French office of that New York tech startup, and then I left that tech startup, and then I was just immersed in this world where work was not important anymore. And it's a very different thing when the reality that you're seeing around you every day, when the culture that you're living in is like, Ew, why are you eating at your desk? Go take lunch. Why are you like, yeah, it's fine. You have a doctor's appointment. Just leave. Don't come back after your doctor's appointment. What are you talking about? If you're sick, you also have 5 weeks minimum of paid vacation in France. If you are unemployed in France, the unemployment office expects you to take 5 weeks of vacation from looking for a job. Like the the, like, degree to which work is decentered and France isn't even the most extreme case, actually, but the degree to which it is decentered compared to the US, like, really flipped my script, totally. And so I was burnt out and resentful of the culture that I had just been in, the business culture I had just been in, and I landed in a place that was, like, soothing all of those anxieties for me, and it's, like, normal and celebrated here. And so I feel like I got a real like, an amazing kind of, like, rebirth opportunity to, like, reimagine my relationship to work thanks to the culture that I live in.
It's so fascinating that polarization, and yeah, I could riff on that for a long time. I think I see both sides of this in me. I really love loafing and relaxing and unplugging, and I feel like I'm a counterculture to like the in many ways I'm counterculture to like the American entrepreneurial startup vibes because I'm like, yeah, like I want to take 2 weeks off of email in July, and it's like that's not normal in America, man. But that's normal in France. It's normal in some other
Mhm.
places. But then I think there's also a lot that in the places like France, perhaps that they don't have as much of that. Again, generalizing, but like might not be as much of that like entrepreneurial like momentum and excitement and like itch and that's I love that about American culture, that innovation and
Yeah.
that. So that part of me is like, because I have the same thing, Kevin, of like, let's just get it done now. Like I literally wrote a little book a few years ago called "Do It Now." Like it's just a little bit, this little spark of a book that's just it's super short with these super pithy one page chapters about like reasons to just get finish things and do things and like, let's go. Life's short. It's amazing. Like, there's that part of me that's so excited to create. And so that part of me wouldn't want to be in the France environment. But then there's the other part of me wants to loaf and take naps. And and unplug and not check email. And so I think it's very fascinating that there's these different emphases and different cultural hubs. And again, I kind of see it as all this conversation is sort of is the growth process. If like the whole culture of humans, all humans are like in the cocoon itself, and like we're struggling because there's all these like different inner conflicts about this stuff. Because we all have a need for rest. We also have a need for excitement and purpose, and the different cultures might emphasize different things. And so I think it's like this is what I see as the greater and the big picture of the coming hundreds of years, perhaps, is like this is the emergence potentially, ideally, towards something that's more flourishing, where we can find our stride. But I think there's a lot of like inner turmoil with some of this stuff, and it happens even just within an individual like myself, where I see a part of me is like one way and a part of me is another way, and so that's all part of this growth process.
Yeah, well, I think it speaks to like the binary all or nothing mentality that can be quite consuming in particular cultures. Like you were saying, someone asks you what you do for work can be a very binary, you know, single short answer question. And we are not single short answer humans. And I think as more people embrace that reality, I think it becomes less of this binary. We are all or not. We are like grind, 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 or we loaf all day. But like we contain multitudes. We can do it all. And we lean one way when we feel we need this way, we lean another way. I think we try to do that at Bonfire too, where like all of the energy, what season are we in? Like there's a lot of talk around it not being a single solution, single way of doing something, but like being able to be fluid and flexible across a lot of different ways.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I think the more and more we just get connected to our different needs as humans, and we can kind of become more intuitive with any particular decision and any direction we're going to go in a given day, versus like here's the blueprint, here's the prescription of like what to do. There's so much of that, like here's what this influencer said to do about productivity, so I'm going to just do that. And this other influencer said the opposite, and then I'm like, wait, and it's like there's all this, but we really need to go inward about it. It's like, can I be flexible and connected to is what I actually is best for me, based on my own desires, my own why, my own preferences, and it all goes back to what you said earlier about living intentionally, and just being aware. Um, I'd be curious to hear any more you want to share about Bonfire and the retreats as we kind of wrap things up here. I'm just picturing people hanging around a bonfire and talking about this stuff. Is that is that close to accurate? Like you
Not far
like
off.
people are
Yeah,
just like giving
yeah,
each
you're
other some
not far
moral
off.
support and like processing this stuff and like, wait, I was just in a startup for the past 5 years and I just burned out. Now what?
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually it was interesting, like, this is, like, a relatively recent like, upcoming is our second one, and, like, this is but we're hoping to move our the center of gravity of our business, like, more toward these, like, enriching in-person experiences. But yeah, it was, yeah, it's funny what you were saying too, that, like, there isn't a prescription or playbook, and, like, that's something that we, like, explicitly set that up as part of our programming that, like, we are not gurus. We are not giving you a, like, lesson plan to, like, take home. There's not a prescription. Like, you are like, trust that that you've brought yourself here for a reason, that if you open yourself up, you will take away something that is valuable for you, and it will be different than the thing that the person sitting next to you is taking away. And that's, like, not a flaw, that's by design because everybody needs different things, and what we learn from each other when we, um, uh, hold a space that is safe to be vulnerable, to share, to, explore some, like, sticky or, like, scary things, it will resonate and stick to different people on different sort of, like, different puzzle pieces will connect for different people, and that's sort of, like, the whole point, that it's individual, but it's intentional, and not everything will be for everybody, and, like, that's cool, like, if something's not resonating with you, you can daydream for 10 minutes. Like no harm, no foul. Like who cares? And yeah, it's like so at these retreats, we do some like exercises where we're like asking you to reflect on certain things. Then there are moderated like group discussions that are sometimes like the whole group, sometimes like small groups. And then usually, I mean, what we saw in our last retreat was that it just kind of like overflowed the sessions and like people just kept talking about all of these things like as the day went on and then over our like happy hour that we did every night and then into dinner. And so like it's kind of rare that like I think we had 12 or 13 people including us at the first one. And like the number of times that all 12 or 13 people would be having the same conversation around the dinner table was like quite striking to me rather than, you know, people kind of like breaking off. And of course that happened too. Like lots of people were just having casual conversations, but there would just be this sort of like magnetism of like everybody's drawn into one discussion. And it happened organically. You know, we're not sitting there with like a glass and like a spoon and going like ting 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 ting, hey everybody, like pay attention now. And so there's something to be said for like gathering people intentionally and just like giving them the non-judgmental open space to like talk about things like this.
Yeah, it's conversations like this. If anyone's listening and wants to talk to us in person about this stuff, please, we'd love to have you at the next retreat.
Yeah.
Joel, we'd love to have you at the next retreat. Like this is how we love spending time. We do it in like amazing places in the French countryside, and so like the environment is really incredible. We cater it with like a private chef. It's just like a really awesome space to be in, and I almost think like the most impactful thing that people do is the very first thing they do, which is prioritizing themselves by signing up to come to retreat. And I think that is something that is really hard for most people to even get to that stage. And so anything you get beyond that is like icing on the cake at that point. And so they're really just like spaces to prioritize yourself. Like Shannon said, learn what you want, take away what you want. We are here to facilitate a safe space for that. And so far, so good. Like it's been a really, really incredible experience for us to get to watch people go through that.
Beautiful. Yeah, French countryside sounds very attractive. Well, it's aroundthebonfire.com. Any other places to send people?
You could follow us on Instagram at Yay Bonfire. And then but our Instagram is really just where we post about our newsletter posts. And so you can go to why do I always forget the URL? It's just newsletter.aroundthebonfire.com. We write every week. It's often about exactly the kind of stuff that we are talking about, but also leans more into sometimes the more like entrepreneurial and business aspects of all of this and how it relates to marketing and brand and storytelling. But we'd love to have you on any of those platforms. So please
Yeah.
come join us.
Come say hi to us on social. Come say hi to us individually on social too. Like we'd love to connect with anyone who cares about the
Yeah.
stuff that we care about.
Beautiful. I'll get all those links in the show notes. Hey, this has been a blast. Just appreciate the richness of conversation and the different layers that we folded in from the personal into the cultural and so forth. So thank you both, Shannon and Kevin.
Thank you, Joel.
Thank you,
It's fun.
Joel. It was so refreshing to not have to talk about marketing qualified leads on a podcast.
Of
Thank you.
course.